At the advancing age of 81, Robert De Niro shows no large sign of slowing down, and some might say he looked a bit old and lethargic in The Irishman already, which was some odd 6 years ago today. Sentiment I don't necessarily agree on. Anyways, his last big movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, showed a return to form, and a De Niro that never fails to impress in a brutal role as William Hale. The movie I will be talking about today, however, called The Alto, is a movie where I feel we see an impressive double role from De Niro, where he plays this crazy Vito Genovese and the more diplomatic Frank Costello, and it might be the most underrated movie he has ever played in. It is quite impressive how different he acts in these two roles, how he manages to be more down to earth and more righteous, knowing that he cannot do it in a crazy way anymore, and has to work with the law rather than against it. And they act as Frank Costello. On the other side, in the role as Vito Genovese, he is this crazy former mafia boss that wants his old empire back in New York. He refuses to adapt and wants it back to the old, crazy, wild way it used to be. I really also like the banter between them as they meet, as Frank says that's a no-no, and Vito says, what do you owe these people? Why have you suddenly decided to play by the rules and be Mr. Diplomat, Mr. Right, or Mr. Play by the Rules? There's also an iconic moment towards the end where Frank is on trial and he wants to tell the truth, and now De Niro, as the other character, Vito shouts plead the fifth, and he is quite angered when he puts himself in this impossible position where he basically has too much water under the bridge. The movie does also benefit from a very good pacing, which is actually better than what we see in Goodfellas and in The Irishman. That's something that really gives this movie an edge, and probably some people might prefer those movies over this one, but I feel the movie presents the story in a good light and makes it interesting to follow. It is quite easy to be immersed into the story between these two characters and the feud between these two old friends from childhood. You see this feud where Vito Genovese wants his old empire back after he was sidelined during the war and came back from Italy into New York. And since that time, Frank Costello took over as the boss, and Vito is quite jealous of that because he wants it all back, trying to kill Frank in the process as he feels that he has turned against him, and he needs to convince Vito that he has reason to retire. Therefore, he makes this big, tension-filled plan by the end to convince him of that tough choice. The story also involves the toxic feud between him and Anna Genovese that wants money from Vito, and during that court case, things get heated, which adds to the at times high entertainment of the movie. I really also like the structure of this movie because we start with the Frank getting shot, possibly stabbed in the back by his best friend. Then we see how he submitted to such a dark action and understand how he might have combated his dark fault. The movie itself looks very much like The Irishman and Goodfellas, but like I said earlier, this one has a better pacing because it is a better version of those movies. The voiceover tells the story in a more effective way, and you see more flow in the story. That's something that makes it easier to handle the screen time at about 2 hours when it's so easy to get highly invested into the story. Moreover, De Niro does have all these strong involvements in the scenes that makes the movie enjoyable. And of course, this movie director has realized that when you make good movies, you do not need inclusion characters, which is sort of the case with the low rating, that we do not see a black woman that could have been a girlfriend of Vito Genovese, for example, just for inclusion. But that's just another good reason I will give this movie a 7 out of 10, and it's clearly one of the most underrated movies Robert De Niro has ever played.